Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. ORWAT Jr.
Welcome to episode number 125 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas ORWAT Jr., and today is June 3rd, 2025. For this episode, I have Josh Todd, vocalist, songwriter, and leader of the hard rock band Buckcherry, as my special guest. During this interview, Josh talks about the new Buckcherry record, Roar Like Thunder, which is scheduled for release on June 13th. This is the band's 11th studio release. Additionally, we discuss the roller coaster ride of Buckcherry's incredible 26-year career and much more. So here he is, Josh Todd. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series, and today we have Josh Todd of Buckcherry with us. Josh, you must be pretty excited. You're less than 2 weeks away from releasing your 11th record. It's coming out on Friday the 13th. Love the singles.
Thank you.
The bar is pretty high though, as far as like your last few releases. They've been incredible. So tell us a little bit about this release, and have you did anything differently as far as writing for this release or recording this release as compared to your other releases?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you. Yeah, it comes out June 13th, and actually we've released 3 songs. Roar Like Thunder was the first one. We did a lyric video for the song Come On, and just dropped our second video for Set It Free. And it's a great record, and like you said, I think the last 2 records prior to this, Hellbound and Volume 10, were our best, and so we're just carrying on the same formula and tradition, and it's me, Stevie, and Marty Fredrickson writing all the songs, and we're having a great time making these records, and this one is really special.
Yeah, it seems like you really have the dream team. You guys, like you said, the last 2 records have been really solid, great releases, great songs on all of them, very solid. But that's really the one thing about Buckcherry when you look at your career. I mean, you have the reputation of being a great live band, but I mean, you look at your studio records and you look at some of those deep tracks on there. I mean, there's no filler. It's all really great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy ride. Our first record was in 1999. Now this is going to be our 11th record in over 25 years. And it's, I don't really think about it too much until I have to, do a lot of press for a record. And then I start kind of, seeing the scope of our career. And it's really cool.
Yeah, it must be difficult to come up with a set list. I just saw you guys, you played in North Tonawanda on the very last date of the Northern
Yeah,
Exposure tour with Steel Panther. Man, what
that
a
was
bill
fun.
that was.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a really great time on that tour. We were up in Canada prior to that. Or was that in Canada?
North Tonawanda's in Buffalo, very close to the
Buffalo.
border.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. They all kind of run in together. But yeah, we did almost 5 weeks in Canada, from the West Coast all the way to Nova Scotia to the East Coast, and then down through Buffalo, so it was quite a tour, a lot of shows. We were averaging 6 shows a week at one point, and yeah, those guys are a lot of fun. They put on a great show, and it was a great package.
Yeah. Now you guys have a reputation of being road dogs pretty much from, 1999 on, COVID, of course, you guys went tour, but you were one of the first bands out after COVID, and it's been
Yeah.
nonstop for you guys. Did you, I mean, you must personally, or do you personally enjoy going out on the road that much? Or do you think you have to because of the music industry?
Well, there's a lot of uh, reasons to be on the road. First and foremost, the music business has changed, as you know, dramatically, especially for rock bands. That's the only point of sale, is the place. If I want to put my business hat on, that's where you make the most amount of money, is on stage. So you got to be out there. There's no more. It's not like the glory days of the 80s where you were like, rock bands were selling millions of records and sitting home collecting big checks. It's just not that way. And so this is the new way, and it's been this way for a lot of years now. And that being said, I got in this because I wanted to be a professional musician, and that's what I am, and that's what I've been doing. And this is my job. This is what I do. So I'm used to it. I know that this is what you have to do. And to this day, I really enjoy making records, and I love to perform, and so yeah, there's a lot of aspects to getting to the stage that are starting to that wear on you after all these years. The traveling gets exhausting, but ultimately it's the big payoff is on stage.
Do you ever see yourself taking like a year off and just not touring?
No, 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 I don't.
No.
I would, I like to work. I love my job, and I'm a workaholic. You know what I mean? So I have to stay busy. I have to have things to do, or it's not good for me.
Yeah. The years, the 26 years, you've gone through quite a few, or you've had quite a few band members come and go. Do you think a lot of it is because the road burned them out because of, the way you guys tour?
I think a lot of it, there's a lot of aspects to why all those roads ended, and it wasn't without a whole lot of communication and trying to better the situation prior to making changes. And it's just what you have to do when you have a business for a long period of time, and that's what this is. It's a business, you know what I mean? And you're only as good as your weakest link, and sometimes you have to make changes for the better of the overall business. And every time we've done that, it's gotten better, and we've gotten to new levels. And so, once you see that, once you make a change and it gets better, then you start going, oh, okay, I'm not going to let this sour apple sit in the apple cart for too long. I'm going to make sure and have the discussions early and make changes when needed.
Mhm. I feel that this lineup that you have is I could argue that this is your strongest lineup you've had. Since Billy Rowe has joined the band in 2020, I really think this lineup that you have of Buckcherry is in my opinion the best live band you've had.
Yeah, and listen, the lineup's been together a long time. Stevie is actually the longest running guitar player in this band. He's been in the band since 2004.
Mhm.
Kelly's been in the band over 10 years. It's like, so I don't think about the lineup that much because we've been together a very long time. Billy's the newest guy, and he's over 4 years now. So I mean, yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, one of the arguments I have with a lot of people, I usually win this argument, is I think that when I think of Buckcherry, I think of Buckcherry as America's last great rock and roll band. I mean, can you think of a band that's come out after Buckcherry that could take that title from you? I really can't.
Listen, there's a lot of rock bands out there. Are they doing it like us? There's no one like us in the rock game as far as how we operate. We consistently put out records every couple of years, and in my opinion, they're very good records. And we're more of the throwback, and we're not out there, pumping pre-recorded, perfectly tuned vocals to the PA and lip syncing our songs. And that's happening a lot now in rock music. I mean, it happens in pop music for years, but like, now it's trickling into the pop game. I mean, the rock game. And, we're a throwback to, the old tradition of rock and roll, and so, that's what makes us unique. We based our reputation on our live show, and so people that start going to Buckcherry shows come to lots of Buckcherry shows. That's what happens.
Yeah, you definitely have a very devoted following. Now you're about to go on another tour, and this is also the anniversary of the record 15. I think your best-selling record, I think.
Yes.
So how are you gonna fit that in with the new record, and you have this anniversary going on also? What is the game plan as far as touring goes for
Yeah, it's the
Buckcherry?
20th year anniversary of 15, and we just acknowledge it. We already play a lot of 15 songs in the set. Stevie and I re-recorded, like, I think three songs off 15 acoustically, for the re-release of that record, and that was a lot of fun. And that's pretty much the amount of attention we've given it, and we're focused on this record and adding these songs, and it's just made like the overall set like really incredible.
As far as touring goes, do you prefer headlining or do you prefer going out with, a more popular band?
We just want to be in front of the most amount of people, honestly, especially at this time of our lives, so whatever that means. And we like doing it all, when we're headlining, we get to play a little longer and do more songs, and that's fun. but it's also a lot of fun to package with a big act, because there's going to be more people every night, and that's also very exciting.
Yeah. Have there ever been any situations touring with like a bigger act where they told you to like, tone down, like, Crazy Bitch is kind of like, one of those songs that you kind of have to play. I can't imagine Buckcherry not playing that, but you probably could because you have so many other great songs. Um,
Yes,
but but have you ever been told to,
yes.
kind of tone it down a bit?
Of course, yeah. We've been asked to do clean shows aside from Crazy Bitch. You can do Crazy Bitch and do it the way you want to, but everything else, if we could have a clean show, we've done that for festivals and fairs because sometimes it's a family affair in all ages, and we understand that, and we totally can adjust our set accordingly. At one point, we did a tour back in the day with Kiss in the States, and they didn't want any cussing, and except in Crazy Bitch, of course. And so we complied and did that. And it's pretty, we can do all that. Yes, to answer your question.
Yeah. And one of the things is that Buckcherry's music is so diverse. You can tour with like, I've seen you with Kiss, I've seen you with Nickelback, I've seen you with Motley Crue. I mean, you could pretty much tour with
Yeah,
any rock band. I mean, you could probably tour with
yeah,
like the Goo Goo Dolls if, they asked you to. I mean, that would be an interesting bill, but that could probably happen.
easily, easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on stage with country acts, with old '80s acts, with '90s acts. I mean, we can adjust our set accordingly. If we're on with like maybe a heavier band, we won't put any ballads in the set, stuff like that, and just play more of our heavier songs. And that's what's great about this band. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that our first record was at the end of the '90s. It was 1999. And some people try to lump us into this '80s rock genre of bands, and it's like, yeah, we play with a lot of those bands and we love them all, but that's not where we started. We started when rap rock was huge, and what I call like shoegazer rock, the guys with the Buddy Holly glasses looking down at their shoes and wearing uh I don't know, polos, you know up to their necks, stuff like that, and we never fit into any of that. We've always been on a little island all by ourselves, and that's just the way we've operated our whole career.
Yeah, that probably explains the diversity of your music is the fact that there are all that sort of the 90s were weird as far as music goes. You had a lot of different bands coming on and that 80s
Yeah.
thing was there. But like I said before, you guys were like, straight up rock and roll too. I mean, you had that attitude, that rock and roll attitude that, those other bands really didn't have, or anything after you really doesn't have. I mean, there have been some bands that do have that rock vibe to them, but I don't think they have that attitude. I always thought that, Buckcherry was going to be like America's Next Aerosmith, kind of like
Yeah.
in that vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just not looked at that way because the rock genre is basically not even in the mainstream of music. Like if you go to award shows, it's like what has the rock genre been at shows like for over a decade? It's been like two people they go to. It's Green Day or the Foo Fighters. That's the rock representation of what rock is. And so you know what I mean? Where it used to be crazy when you'd see the MTV Music Awards and stuff like that. There was a lot of rock performances, and it's just not that way anymore, and it hasn't been for a long time. So we've just adjusted accordingly, and we've had this really, really quiet, long ass career over 25 years.
Do you have any songs in your catalog that you feel that should have been much bigger than they were, received better than they were? Anything in particular that stands out?
I everything happens for a reason. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could nitpick and go back, but I try not to look back. I just stay focused on the task at hand. I mean, there's lots of things that bother me about this business and about, how artists are compensated now, for what they do and what they've, dedicated their lives to, and that's not fair in my opinion. But, I don't want to go on a soapbox on that. It is what it is.
The thing about music nowadays is that you could pretty much put out like the White Album at this point, and it you know doesn't get the recognition it deserves. So I mean,
No.
as an artist, I mean, it must give you some kind of feeling of it must bring the stress down a little bit, I would think, because you don't have everybody like looking at you. You don't have record companies, demanding this. I mean, do you feel that
Yeah.
freedom more so now than you did back when Buckcherry first started to write
Yeah,
what you want to write?
none of it really bothers me because when I was a kid, I was going through a lot, in my personal life, and the stuff in my childhood, you know what I mean? And so when I got into my record collection as a teenager, a young teenager, it was all independent punk rock records, and I liked those records because they were unbridled. They were not being controlled by a major label as far as what they were saying or anything. And I needed that. I needed that brutal honesty because that's what I related to as a kid. I like those records, and so I guess it instilled in me to like be honest with your art first and foremost, like whatever that means, even if it's uh, something that may not be received well, that rubs people the wrong way, be honest and passionate because if you're that way, then, you know, uh, you will always have longevity, in my opinion, because people believe in it. And ultimately, the audience will always tell you what's not right because they can feel it too. You know what I mean? So, that being said, so cut to this is the way it is. It's kind of gone back to that era where you put out records and it's word of mouth as far as like what people want to hear, you know what I mean? Because they pick and choose what they want to hear on Spotify. They create their own little playlists, and so now we get all these young people coming to their shows that discovered some song off our new record on Spotify, and they got into our whole catalog. They had no idea we had over 100 songs out there, and they become instant fans, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed in a lot of the fans, like at the show I was at. I mean, there were a lot of like younger people, like, like maybe 20 years old,
Yeah,
seeing this band that was around before they were even born. And
yeah.
you really I feel like going back like when I was growing up and seeing bands like, Aerosmith and Ted Nugent and Triumph and bands like that. I felt that there
Mhm.
was just really like the age range wasn't as great. I mean, you wouldn't see like older people. The range would be like from 12 to maybe like 25. And now it's like from like maybe 8 years old to like 70 years old for you
At a
guys.
Buckcherry show? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, we've been around for 25 years. So now we have people that were young adults that got into us in 99, and then they had kids, and then eventually their kids became teenagers, and all of a sudden it's a family affair. We have a lot of that going on at Buckcherry shows. So that's cool. And then, like I said, the young people that are getting into us for the first time in Spotify, and then the older generation that got into us, because it reminds them of all the bands that they were into, in the 70s and in the 80s, you know what I mean? So it's very cool.
Yeah. Going back to the 15 record, like we mentioned before, it's 20 years since that. How gratifying was it for you guys to rise from the ashes and reestablish your band and have your biggest record of your career and just like dominate that year. I mean, everybody was talking about Crazy Bitch. You got to hear the song Crazy Bitch. It was like just such a great song. And then also Sorry was on the radio all the time. So that record
Yeah.
was such a and the other songs too. I mean, it was just this great solid record. So how gratifying was it for you to, kind of put your middle finger up to everyone who didn't believe in the band?
That's exactly how it felt. It felt really good. It was sweet revenge because, it's such a great story because we had that record done and no one wanted to be in business with us, and so except Japan, and that's why we call the record 15. We had a very small budget. We recorded it in 15 days, so and nobody would sign it in the States. And so our manager at the time, Alan Kovac, created a independent label called 11/7 just to put out the 15 record. He's like, fuck it, I'll start my own label. And we had an upstreaming clause through Atlantic because they were going to distribute the record, but they wouldn't sign us. But we had an upstreaming clause. And then once Buckcherry hit, everybody wanted to be our friends again, and it's like, it is what it is. It's the music business. It's not like it hasn't ever changed. I mean, that's just the way it is. And you know what? As a businessman, because I can put my business hat on and go, it's smart if you look at it in a business way, because we'd had a long hiatus. How do you know what we're gonna do at this point? You know what I mean? And you don't want to invest a lot of money into something that you want them to show you something before you start dropping money into them. And we did, and they got back into a situation with us business wise, and it's what we needed, I guess. I mean, we had to really hunker down and get back to the basics as far as like, why do we want to do this? Do we want to do it to acquire riches, or are we doing this because we're passionate about being musicians? And it's always been first and foremost passion for me.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing was Time Bomb was a good record, which was your second record right
Great
before.
record.
Yeah. And what do you think in retrospect? What do you think happened? Why don't you think that one gained the traction and led to the breakup of the band?
Well, that's not what led to the breakup of the band. There was just a lot of things internally that it just wasn't jiving, and we had to make changes, and that all was going to work itself out regardless of what happened with Time Bomb. But Time Bomb, there was a lot of things, and I don't like to really go down the road of like all the negative aspects of why things didn't happen and pointing fingers. I have my own understanding of why that record didn't work, but it didn't work, and things happen, and we have the history that we have, and now we're here and everything's all right, and we know what is great about this band and why it works, and it's working really well.
Yeah, I mean, you could call it like a blessing in disguise because it got you, refocused and you released this great record and you've been kicking ass ever since 15.
Sure, but I have to say I'm highly motivated. I didn't need that to be motivated to make a great record, and neither did any of the guys that were involved back then, So it's just timing. Timing is a huge thing. Timing and the right song. So the right song at the right time. And it just happened. And thank God, because we believed in ourselves and we took a leap of faith and we wrote our best songs at that time. And one of them happened in a big way.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about writing a book about your career?
Uh, Let me just say, I'm just not a fan of music stories, honestly. You'd think I would be, but because I've lived it, it's just so boring to me. So I just think it's boring, and that's why I would not do it. Uh, but people have asked me that a lot of times. I don't know. Maybe I'll rethink it later on when I'm not. I might write a book when I'm not in the game anymore.
Yeah. But I personally cannot see, I can't imagine you not in the game. I think that you're going to go on until, you can't anymore. Like, your
One day at a
last
time.
moment on earth will be a concert, when
One
you're
day at a
90.
time. You're
Yeah.
probably right, but I can only do what I can physically show up for, and everything's working really well right now. So I'm gonna take it.
All right. So you have you have a summer tour coming up. What are the plans for after the summer?
Yeah, we got a lot of plans. After the summer, we're gonna be doing a residency in Las Vegas with the Scorpions. That's gonna be amazing.
That's right. I
We're
forgot about
really
that.
looking forward to that. We got a lot of things in the works that I can't talk about right now because it's not finalized, and I don't want to say anything until it's done. But we're going to be touring all year basically, and we'll be doing some of our own shows with some festivals in there and fairs, and then we're going to be packaging up with some other really great bands, and it's going to be a lot of fun, a mixture of everything, and we got a lot of songs to get to, and we have a great record dropping here real soon, so it's all going on.
Yeah, Buckcherry and the Scorpions. I don't think anything could there could be a better bill than that. That
that's
sounds
going to be
amazing.
that's going to be so strong. I can't wait.
Yeah, definitely. And also the having all the shows in Vegas. I mean, that must be pretty sweet just to like hang out there and like not have to travel and have all your shows in one place.
Yeah, I like Sin City. I like playing that place, and we're actually going to play it this weekend. We're playing Saturday night, so that's going to be fun, and yeah, it's going to be great getting back there with that caliber of band and the history that they have, and you know, man, I went and saw them when I was a teenager, and my high school sweetheart was really into the Scorpions, and that's how I got into the Scorpions, and So it brings back a lot of really great memories.
The last question I want to ask you, Josh, is what is your opinion on the price of concert tickets nowadays? I mean, to me, they seem a little outrageous, and I do understand the expenses and everything, but I mean, some of these, like AC/DC tickets, for instance, were just pretty crazy, unless you
Right.
wanted to sit in the very upper deck. How do you feel about it as
Right.
an artist? Do you think they're justified being that high?
You know, I don't really, I think everybody, when people talk about concert tickets and the high price of them, they're talking about artists that are filling up arenas like the Taylor Swifts and the AC/DCs of the world. And, and that's not, we're on a different level, so I don't know what to say about that, but I do know that AC/DC should be compensated for what they've put into the game and what they've delivered, and they're amazing live. They have an amazing history, and paying whatever to go see them, I think is a good idea. So if we're speaking just about AC/DC, but other than that, I don't know. We're at a different level than that, so it hasn't affected us like that.
Hmm. All right. Well, Josh, I want to thank you very much for your time and best of luck to you on the road. And I'm keep putting out these great records. I can't wait till the 13th to like crank up the new record. I'm probably be listening to it for like a week straight.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate the love. And I know everybody's going to love this record. Go out and get it June 13th or pre-order it right now and get 3 songs right now. Anyways, thanks, man.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Josh.
Be good.
You too. Bye bye.